So to start the discussion, I run a fairly big Cisco wireless network. We get every kind of client under the sun. We have very robust internet pipes, etc. Yet at the same time, on any given day, no matter how good we lay out our network, no matter how much time we put into, training people on support and everything else, we have factors that contribute to the perception that, hey, your network sucks. So bad drivers, for example. Specific case in point, in December we found that right before our holiday break, Windows had done a patch for Windows 7. And that impacted certain wireless drivers. I don't remember which ones exactly, but it was one particular model of Intel, and I think it was like one or two Broadcoms. And the effect there was that I basically had to turn off band steering. I had to turn off every optional feature until the driver got updated to make those specific clients behave. But to those clients, the wireless network sucks. And there's enough of those examples out there that people just aren't aware of that it is worth talking about.
All right. So talk about it.
Well, I'm just wondering if anybody else has got any thoughts.
Well, that's the problem with wireless, right? If it wasn't for the clients, wireless would be easy. And I think that's kind of the point of it all is that the infrastructure manufacturers are in this constant battle between every device manufacturer out there. From a feature set perspective, everybody wants to support the latest and greatest features that are most recently ratified by the IEEE or whatever, and everybody implements in their own way, or everybody does things, ever so slightly differently. And so the from an infrastructure perspective, it's always a constant battle about how X particular rev of a client on X build of a chip with X driver with X supplicant and whatever operating system behaves differently than when you change one of those variables, and it's the struggle that we all have.
I know I've also seen some of our remote sites that are interested in upgrading their wireless, and then you give them a price on what it would take to do everything in the building and get it up to where it needs to be, and then the only thing that's available for internet is T1 or two T1s, and there's just nothing else available, and trying to work with that, so that ends up being a design limitation. Or people actually go forward and you realize what they have for internet, and then when they try to get on their whiz-bang wireless network and get out to the internet, there's nothing to take them there, especially when two people try to use it at the same time.
Or if a whole classroom tries to fire off Google Earth all at the same time.
Exactly.
And they wonder why it doesn't work.
But the inevitable trouble ticket is that the wireless network sucks.
And even if you do a well-designed network where you've gotten all your APs placed, it's a greenfield set of buildings and you've gotten everything there, if the clients suck, they're doing something unexpected, there's more clients than you were expected to be using that part of the network, you can still run into a situation where things aren't working, and to them it's just the wireless network's not working, it's not anything to do with the clients.
Well, don't forget sometimes the wireless network does suck, and not from an infrastructure perspective, but when was the last time somebody brought an 11B client into a cell and was trying to download something, and then suddenly your performance goes to hell in a handbasket by design.
I get it. I use a BlackBerry. Just
Does it even have wireless?
yes, it's in beta.
Bluetooth. In Lee's environment, it's obviously pretty difficult. You can make recommendations for drivers, but in an enterprise environment, you've got a bit more. You can do something often. In every design I write, I always suggest make sure you've got the latest drivers. It's pretty difficult to manage drivers in an enterprise environment still, and so the only time I generally see them up to date is when there's a new SOE being rolled out, and at least then, that team or those guys can, if you give them the word, tell them how important drivers really are, and if they, if they take that into account, you can roll out a new SOE image with the latest drivers. It's best effort. But managing drivers at an enterprise level, I've never seen. It's rarely done, and most hardware rarely needs an update in a lot of enterprises. You know, video cards and wired NICs, they're not being pushed, whereas wireless obviously, I guess, maybe changes that quickly. But
Well, you're talking about device ownership and who owns the devices and who maintains them, which is, of course, the antithesis of BYOD, right?
yeah,
Which is
and so I
just-
guess we're getting more, even in an enterprise, we're getting more towards this university environment.
Right.
Well, from an enterprise perspective, we actually have a process in place in the hospital system where before any purchases are done, anything that's going to be over a quantity of 100, we would get a demo in and put the product through its paces. Try out, make sure it can stay on the network for 24 hours, monitor it. The monitoring process is simple as pinging, doing roaming, making sure that on the driver with that specific card. We also try to leverage one card. We're an Intel shop. We don't try to bring in Broadcom, Intel, and other manufacturers, so this way we have one area of expertise to really dive deep on. So I think in some scenarios, difficult to do that in a university, right? Because you're going to see everything. But in a more controlled environment, if you take the initiative to get out front, understand what you're purchasing, testing, make recommendations as to drivers before you deploy them, really helps you on the back end.
Yeah, but
Well-
doesn't that go against the whole idea of BYOD, right?
I was
Which
gonna
is we're
say, what
gonna
happens
enable-
when the CEO wants to bring
Bring
in
in-
something that's not on that list
You
and
bet.
says, I'm bringing it in.
Well, you're going to have that. Those are the exception to the rule. But when you start to do mass deployment for the employees of the enterprise, for corporate-owned devices, just like for BYOD, not everyone's supporting Android and iPad or Apple devices. A lot of them are just doing Apple. So you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. But of course, you're going to have those one-offs. But it's better to have the ability to leverage something, and that something is whatever you're.
That's one of the biggest challenges with BYOD. I mean, there's so many, but you no longer have that control.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if we're saying that clients are so important, and I guess if it's coming back to drivers and they're often not up to date, when you're sort of going backwards, you know, obviously forwards in other respects, but as far as client performance and stability goes.
Well, you know, sometimes too, when you have a team, you know, hopefully you're more than just the only Wi-Fi guy. You do testing on those devices. I know Keith and I had shared some input on how Apple devices work. You know, literally spend one day, and that's really all you need, is just one solid day, watch packet captures. Watch what a device does. What I found with the iPad specifically, if you run certain apps, and the Citrix app is one of those, it actually keeps the network connectivity up when the screen goes dark. If you're not running that app, when the screen goes dark, a lot of times you'll see a deauthentication frame come from the device. And then that also leads to Cisco getting the prompt again for the web page, right? So, I mean, take the time and just understand the product. Just one day of simple packet captures and understand what you're looking at goes a long way.
Yeah, let me put Mark on the spot too, because last night we were talking a little bit about the parallels between what he had going on with the London Olympics and what I see like in our Dome campus stadium, where a client walks in, grabs the first AP, and sticks to it. And then you're, 10 APs over, 5 APs over, or whatever, which should be the better bet, and the client just won't let go. And again, to that client, the network feels like it sucks. The dreaded sticky client thing, which I found personally, depending on what Apple does with this, each little minor code change can impact that sort of behavior on a network that hasn't been changed at all, and that can be frustrating.